Welcome to Now in the 90s, where we look at the game releases of 30 years ago today. This week, a lesser-known fighter from SNK, another board game adaptation, and a surfer-themed platformer. I am your host, Jared, and today is September 16th, 1992. This may sound shocking, but the Neo Geo got a fighting game released on it. I know. Released September 11th, 1992 for the Neo Geo AES was World Heroes. World Heroes is a one-on-one fighting game that's more or less a clone of Street Fighter II to compete with Street Fighter II. There are selectable fighters hailing from all over the world, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and of course, special moves. There are 3 buttons to use: punch, kick, and throw. You can use either weak or strong punches and kicks, which is determined by how long you hold that button. Gameplay-wise, it's a Street Fighter clone through and through. However, look at the actual character roster. Many of them are based on real, notable people. For example, Dragon's the clear Bruce Lee phenotype. The sorcerer Rasputin is very clearly Rasputin. Jeanne d'Arc is, well, Joan of Arc. American wrestler Muscle Power is absolutely just Hulk Hogan. And Brocken is, well, Brocken is a cyborg Nazi. That's not entirely a joke, by the way. During the production of the game, developer ADK, or Alpha at the time, had an entirely wacky fighter lineup planned of more famous historical figures, including Al Capone, Jack the Ripper, Billy the Kid, and cyborg Nazi Brocken was originally cyborg Nazi Adolf Hitler. But I guess Wolfenstein 3D already beat them to that by a few months. Also unique to the game is the deathmatch mode. No actual death is involved, but instead stage hazards are activated. The walls become electrified or just on fire. There are oil slicks, spiked walls, basically no hiding in the corner allowed. In more comparisons to Street Fighter II, it also has bonus stages in the form of carving stone into a buff dude statue and breaking falling pots. And in a twist, the final boss, Gigas could morph into any of the other fighters, months before another fighting game's notable final boss could do that. World Heroes was originally released in the arcade on July 28th, 1992. When the home AES version was released in September, World Heroes was doing super well. It was charting above Street Fighter II and was popular enough that a sequel was quickly greenlit and released in less than a year. Despite the surprising popularity of the time, the World Heroes series didn't continue much after its second game. However, some of the characters do make cameo appearances in other SNK games. Surprisingly, none of them show up at all in the SNK vs. Capcom games, but Jeanne d'Arc is a DLC assist character in SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy. Remember like a month ago when we were talking about the Clue video game and brought up Monopoly? Well, out this week in 1992 is Monopoly for the SNES and Sega Genesis.
How did I make it big? I know how to play the game. I buy real estate, hotels, fancy cars, even railroads. And I take chances. To make it big, you've got to play the game. I'm Monopoly Game.
What can I really say here? It's Monopoly. Roll the dice around, move your piece with little animations, and after about 25 minutes, ask yourself why anyone bothers to play Monopoly, because it's never actually fun. It does that hand animation thing for rolling dice that they had already used in the Clue board game, so that's nice. Also like Clue, there's no music. It's an eerily silent, lonely thing to play even with friends. The exception being that when you do an auction for a property, then rather loud, irritating piano music blares out. Many people who play Monopoly found some shocking revelations when playing the video game, because the video game plays Monopoly correctly. It is incredibly accurate to the rules as written, and there's no extra stuff on top of it. This meant that as kids, for the first time, we had to learn to play without all the bizarre house rules that spread around the playground like the Lara Croft nude code secret. There's no money kept at free parking, you still get rent while you're in jail, and any property not immediately purchased must be auctioned off. It still isn't fun. A video game version that did the math for us still didn't make Monopoly any more fun to play. I hated that as a kid. I rented this game multiple times. I can't believe I went from having Monopoly on my Nintendo to having Nintendo on my Monopoly. Collector's edition, my ass. Monopoly for the NES, SNES, Sega Genesis, and the Game Boy were all developed by Sculptured Software, which is a rather mundane project for any developer. However, they eventually did all right for themselves. They were the ones responsible for the home ports of Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. Now, in the 90s, people were willing to make a platformer of anything they could. Case in point, released this week in 1992 for the Sega Genesis, is Green Dog, the Beached Surfer Dude.
The clam. You can eat them or they can eat you.
Green Dog is a platformer about a surfer dude trying to totally undo this bummer curse on his amulet, man. I'd argue that the real curse is him not being able to see out from underneath his own hair. Or his hat, I can't really tell. As you walk forward, every living thing does its best to murder Green Dog. And you can fight back with frisbee attacks, eat junk food to restore health, and, in a surprising twist, no surfing. You do skateboard though. Also, there's a song in the game that just totally rips off Under the Sea from The Little Mermaid. Who is Green Dog? Where did Green Dog come from? He was the creation of entrepreneuring businessman Rick Green. Do you remember those foam footballs in the early 90s that were covered in Velcro so that you could easily catch them with Velcro gloves? He invented those. He used the money from that patent to create a board game, Surf Up, featuring the character of Green Dog. The video game would be based loosely on that. The box art for the video game was done by Cam DeLeon, who is best known as the artist for 3 separate albums for Tool. I hate this game. It's infuriating, unfair, and nothing about the surfer theme lines up well or pays off whatsoever, and Green Dog looks dumb. As for reviews at the time, well, EGM sister magazine Megaplay gave it a high score of an 8, but also another reviewer gave it a 4, whereas GamePro magazine gave it an almost perfect score. There's no way! Of every game we've discussed on this show this year, this is the highest score we have seen from GamePro. How much of that Velcro football money did Mr. Dog pay them? How much? Reviews used to make no sense at the time. And for the other games released this week, once more, here's Editor Dylan.
Also released on the SNES was Super Bowling. It's your standard bowling game, sure, but the music, visuals, and gameplay, it just screams classic Super Nintendo. It's charming, give it a shot sometime. And the other game released this week was 4-in-1 Fun Pack for the Game Boy, featuring chess, checkers, backgammon, and I forget what the other one was. The normal AI was a tad basic, but I appreciate the extra features like the hint system, the rewind function, and plus it's one of the cheapest Game Boy games we've seen in a while. That leaves us with a grand total of 6 games released on these 4 consoles this week in 1992. I looked up Super Bowling for prices and learned it got a sequel on the N64. And if you have that, congratulations! You have one of the most expensive N64 games of all time. No, really, it's nearing the quadruple digits for the cartridge alone. But I'll leave the money talk to the professional. All yours, Jared.
Thank you, Dylan. As far as Neo Geo games go, World Heroes is on the cheaper side. The loose cartridge is over $150, while complete is less than $250. Monopoly, nobody cares. It's worth less than $10, and the complete version is barely any more at $15. I would rather buy an actual copy of Monopoly. Green Dog, the Beach Surfer Dude, isn't much better. It was released with a price of $49.95 and is now at less than $10 for just the cartridge and less than $25 for it complete with the box and manual. And that's it for today. Next week, a Pocket Ninja, a shocking word game, and another Simpsons game. I'm your host, Jared, and this was Now in the 90s. Thank you so much for watching Now in the 90s. Please like the video and leave a comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you already are a subscriber, thank you so much for watching this every single Friday. All right, be honest with me. Have you ever been suckered into buying a special edition of Monopoly? Yes, I actually did buy this back in 2006 because I was convinced this would somehow be a limited edition thing.